going, everybody? This is Andy Timmons from Dallas, Texas, and you're listening and watching to Linea Rock here in Milan.
Great, and Mr. Andy Timmons, welcome.
Thank you, Barbara.
High-class American guitarist
Right.
with your brilliant career, actually, full of different music colors, from jazz to heavy metal, blues, unique style, and a big heart. That's the main thing.
Thank you.
So welcome to Italy again,
Grazie,
and
grazie.
welcome to Linea Rock.
Great to be here. Great to see you. We go back a long time.
Yes,
almost 22 years now.
Yes, right.
Wow.
And I'm proud.
And you're 26 years old.
Oh,
So.
yes, so I was a bambina.
Me too, yeah.
Okay, so your career started mid-80s, is that correct?
I guess essentially, yeah. I mean, as far as my time, as far as on the world stage, so to speak, was with Danger, starting in 1980. I think I joined in 88, and early 89 is when the record came out. So, I mean, but I'd been playing for many years before then, so I was already 24, 25 years old at that point.
So do you remember the very first time that you fell in love with your main partner, the guitar?
Oh, of course. I mean, it was very early on. I mean, my earliest musical memory is the Beatles 45, I Wanna Hold Your Hand. The flip side was I saw her standing there.
Yeah.
And there's this wonderful instrumental section where, okay, when the singing stops, what's that sound? What's that? And it's this wonderful reverb-drenched, George Harrison solo. And I was just already attracted to that sound, even before knowing what a guitar was or a guitar solo was. And then from the age of maybe 3 or 4, I had like toy plastic guitars that my mother was buying me from the drugstore. And they would eventually get broken or whatever, and I'd get another one. But I was learning how to play. I had 3 older brothers that all played guitar a little bit. And my oldest brother was 12 years older than I. So being born in 63, he was the prime record buying age, and he bought every Beatle record that came out, but anything British Invasion, Dave Clark 5, Kinks, Yardbirds, Animals, all that. So that was my musical foundation. That was my education. And they all play a little bit of guitar, so it was always around the house.
Yeah.
I remember the day that my brother showed me the riff to "I'm Not Your Stepping Stone" by the Monkees. Just single string, but it was before Smoke on the Water, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first. Okay, I can do this, and it's amazing fun, and so I'm still having fun.
It's not a case that we're talking about the Beatles, since you're
Right.
around Europe promoting a new album, which
Yes.
is an instrumental version of Sgt. Pepper that you just did, which is amazing. So everybody must check it out. And so the idea came out, and why that album?
It was a very natural progression. We'd been coming over here to Italy now for many years, thanks to initially Stefano Soto with Mogar, and now Riccardo Capelli, just bringing us over. I started doing some clinics for Mesa Boogie back in 2005, and then Riccardo was a journalist for some of the guitar magazines, and was unhappy that some of his favorite guitar players weren't coming over here, so he just got a hold of me and said, "Hey, would you like to come do some dates with your band?" Of course. And now it's kind of turned into a very regular thing. The Italian audience has really embraced us, and they like what we're doing. And so what happened with the Sgt. Pepper record was on some earlier tours we were doing a version. I did an arrangement of Strawberry Fields Forever, and we were doing it in our power trio style, where I'm playing all the chords and melody, and just one guitar, bass, and drums, and it was always going over really well every night. The crowd responded and really connected with that song, because it's a very familiar, classic, psychedelia-laden Beatle track. And it was Riccardo that kind of planted the seed. He said, "Well, next time you come back, you should do a whole set of Beatles." But in my mind, I was like, "There's no way I could pull that off. How am I going to do a whole set of Beatles and keep it interesting with no vocals and just a guitar?" But that did get my wheels turning a little bit. And I just kind of started tinkering around with other songs. I'd done Strawberry Fields, I'd done Sgt. Pepper, the track Sgt. Pepper as a little medley. So I just started working on other songs, just kind of as a hobby. When I had a moment, I'd pick up the guitar and how would I do In My Life, or how would I do Help, and I started playing chord melody versions, kind of like approaching it like a jazz guitarist would.
Yeah.
Because in the trio, I have to play the melody, but I'm also supporting myself with chords, but then also incorporating guitar lines or orchestrations. And so, but I don't really remember the specific day of like, hey, let's see if I can do the whole Sgt. Pepper record. It was, I think, Lucy in the Sky came next, and maybe I worked on another song here and there. But then I got the idea, okay, what if I could sit by myself and play the whole record? It would just be fun. just to see if I could do it, because it was certain songs were starting to sound really good to me. Again, it was just me playing by myself, trying to cover all the parts, and it was just a fun challenge. Yeah. Let's see if we can do this. And by the time I realized it was kind of working, I realized I wanted to record it the same way we'd done the Resolution CD, which was no overdubs, just one guitar, bass, and drums, like we do it live.
Yeah.
Certainly, and when we did the record, I got about half the tracks that I kept on the record. I got it live with the band, which is nice. But then there was another half of the tracks I thought I could improve upon, and then that took a year. Yeah. So in 2 days, I got half the record done, and then it took a year to finish the other tracks. But some of the, by way how I did the arrangements by playing chords and open strings, and tuning can be very difficult on the guitar. It proves to be a very imperfect instrument. And so some things took a while to really figure out how I was going to do it and have it really sound great. And I also knew that, by attempting to do a record like this in the way that we were doing it, it's a pretty bold move, and it's got to be really good. Sonically, it's got to be great arrangement-wise. And because I'm as huge of a Beatle fan as I am, which is obvious when I let people know that the arrangements I did all from memory. I've heard this music more than anything in my life, and since I was, from the cradle, so to speak. So, and I'm not a big fan of Beatle cover records overall. It's,
all right.
Because it's like it's hallowed ground. It's like it's got to be great. The Smithereens, I thought, did some great Beatle covers recently. Of course, Cheap Trick did a nice version of Sgt. Pepper. I do love Jeff Beck's version of A Day in the Life. I think it's one of the best guitar recordings ever.
And do you like Metallica?
I haven't heard it.
No, okay. It's like Beatles songs, as Metallica style.
I'll have to hear it. But in general, there's been a lot of jazz artists that have redone Beatles, and sometimes, too much liberty is taken. Like they try to reharmonize or change it up a little too much. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it's like I'd rather just want to hear the way it's intended. So my thought for the record was like I just want to interpret the songs as I hear it in my head. Do it as close to the original as possible, but just singing it through the guitar and in a modern power trio context, So that was the fun. Just
plus, it's a milestone. It's an historic record, and it's considered also the best rock guitar album of all times, still by a lot of critics. Yeah. So, was it a big responsibility for you to do that particular album?
No, I never really thought of it in those terms, because when I started working on it, I wouldn't think about making a record. I was it was truly out of my passion and fun, and fondness of the music. Of course, I do think it's a great guitar record. George Harrison is an amazing guitar player, and Paul, I think, played quite a bit of lead work on it too. Getting a chance to play some of those solos verbatim was a lot of fun, like the Fixing a Hole solo or the licks on the Sgt. Pepper track, whatever it might be. That was great to really try to execute that properly. But the fun really was trying to get the vocal inflections right on the guitar and getting that to sing in a similar fashion,
And that is perfect. That's the heart that comes.
Yeah, I hope so. That's
And you also produced the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
why this choice?
Well, most of the records that we've done, it's either been myself with Rob Wexler or the Resolution record. Mike Dane, bassist in the group, co-produced with me. So I've always just kind of done it that way. It's just been kind of in-house within the band and with Rob Wexler being our engineer since.
You want to have total control of.
I think everything. I don't mind outside influence, and sometimes it's great. Working with Mike on the last record was awesome because we hadn't really worked in that way. We played together for 20 years, but we hadn't. In the capacity of him engineering the guitar tracks and co-producing with me, it was great because it was a different spin, it was a different ethic, and it was a different. It brought different things out of me as a player, and that can be great. But this one, going in, I knew exactly what I wanted. By the time we got around to recording it, it wasn't even a recording session we intended to do the Beatles thing. We'd gone in to record some other original songs. Sometimes we write together as a band, and sometimes I bring songs in and we work on the arrangements together. So we'd already done 2 days of recording, and 2 days extra came available with our engineer in the studio. And he says, "Well, what else you got?" And it was Mitch, our drummer, that said, "Hey, what about those Beatles songs you keep talking about?" So he's like, "Let's do it. Let's do it now. We got 2 days. Let's do it." And so it was kind of all right. Let's go for it. Luckily, I've been playing for 2 years working on this stuff, so I knew I know what I want. Yeah. And Mitch knew a lot of the songs. Mike had worked on some of them, and quickly, what he didn't know, listen and get it. And it was amazing how quickly it happened. And there's a spirit about it because of that. Yeah. And Mitch, he's an amazing drummer that really understands the beauty of the genius of Ringo and why what he does is so special. And a lot of drummers don't see that and don't respect it. And I challenge any great drummer to really be able to pull that feel off. I haven't met many that can.
Especially back then.
Yeah,
he was a pioneer.
He was much a pioneer because he was one of the only guys in a band playing on the records.
Yes.
All those other British Invasion records are studio guys. Namely Bobby Graham, but that's another interview day. Yeah. There's a wonderful guy, a friend of ours, he passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately, but he was one of the most recorded drummers of all time, which nobody knew. Because they weren't allowed to discuss it like the American counterpoint would have been Hal Blaine, yes, that played on all the L.A. tracks, from all the Beach Boys to Gary Lewis and the Playboys, countless sessions. But it was okay that people knew about it, But anyway, the English session scene was different. The union made deals with the labels, and nobody was hush hush. But actually, Bobby was actually offered the gig of the Beatles.
Oh, really?
Before they found or got Ringo, I guess Brian Epstein was looking around, and Bobby was the hot guy in the studios. And long story short, he was already in a band that was doing well, so he turned down this unknown group, the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
But of course, and Bobby's next to Ringo, my favorite drummer of all time. He's the guy that played on all the Dave Clark 5 records, and that's some of the best drumming on any pop record ever. And long story short, but the Beatles records would not have been the same without Ringo. Yeah. If you plug in any other drummer, Hal Blaine included, even the studio grades. Yeah. He rocked better than any of them, and they had a joy. There was a spirit of the music that came through. John and Paul would have been great. George would have been great, no matter what. But those tracks are that much more special because of Ringo. You're only as strong as your drummer. That's really the bottom line. Those Motown tracks, same thing. Unknown guys backing all these great vocal stars, but those records had a special feel. Yeah. You got to see the movie Standing in the Shadows of Motown. Okay. It's a story about the unsung heroes that made these records special. Yeah.
Right. So beside the Beatles, yes, which are a main influence, as we can see, which other influences would you pick as your most important for your artistic career?
You've got the Kiss shirt on. Post-Beatles, Ace Frehley and Kiss were the biggest influence. When I started playing guitar, Kiss Alive taught me how to play guitar. Okay. That was the record that, and I was at the right age. I was maybe in my early teens, or maybe when did Kiss Alive come out? 1975. So I was 9 years old. No, I'm sorry. I was 12. I was 11 years old. My math skills are not at the forefront here. No, that was my education, because I'd been playing guitar for a while and I knew some chords. Yes. Somebody showed me the bar chord. I knew my pentatonic scale. Kiss comes out, and Ace Frehley was the perfect combination of all the kind of British blues rock guitar players, the Clapton and Page and Jeff Beck and Pete Townsend, but they had the Zeppelin influence by then, and it was just kind of wrapped up in this nice, easily digestible style for somebody that was learning by ear. I didn't have a teacher. So Ace Frehley was my teacher with the record. I learned all the Kiss songs, note for note, and Ace Frehley was kind of the Slash of his day. He never got really the respect that he deserved, because they both, with the strong suit for both players, they're great rock and roll players, but they construct really, really well composed solos. They're memorable along with the song. They may be kind of straight ahead blues rock licks and not technically amazing, but put them in the context and they're brilliant. So Ace was and still is just, I think, one of the great rock players of all time. So that starting there, and just all the 70s rock, because I was in a band from the time I was in 8th grade on. So what is that, age 12 or 13? And so we were playing, Rush and Foghat and Ted Nugent and Aerosmith and REO Speedwagon and all those guys. And so
Boston.
Yeah, Boston. Well, nobody could play Boston because nobody could sing it. But we tried.
The sound
of that record. It still holds up, which is amazing. The Boston record still, it's such a landmark achievement for recording and production. Tom Scholz, man, what a genius, that guy. That's the guy I'd love to hang out with and pick that guy's brain, right? So that was a big influence, absolutely.
So you did 8 solo albums as Andy Timmons and Andy Timmons Band. Mm-hmm. Which is the one that you think that represents you at your best and that you would suggest, to to people that don't know you maybe yet, and to check out your style, which is the perfect one to start?
I mean, my playing has evolved and changed over time. I mean, my first solo records were very influenced by Joe Satriani and a little bit Eric Johnson. But Joe, when he came along in '86 or '7 with Surfing with the Alien, that was such a landmark for every guitar player anyway. Like, wow, okay, we don't need a singer. We can just go play our guitar. And what was brilliant about Joe, and still is brilliant about Joe, is that not only was he cream of the crop technically, he could just play, and he had such a harmonic knowledge, but a great blues-based style. He knew how to write songs. And this, in the instrumental guitar world, is still the most sorely lacking. Guitar records tend to be excuses to play solos, and that's great to a degree, but there has to be a song, And the guys that I listen to, like Larry Carlton and Matheny and Mike Stern and some of the more jazzy influenced guys, they were much better composers than a lot of the rock guys, So I gravitated more to those because at the end of the day, I just want to hear a great song. Yeah. I don't care about the technique involved. I don't care about, gosh, that must have been hard. Okay, after you get over the technical wow factor, okay, are you going to listen again? There's plenty of guitarists I can name where, okay, it's amazing and I'll never be able to do it, but maybe I'll put it on once. Mm-hmm. If it's not a great song, it's not going to bear repeated listenings. So Joe kind of set the bar for that, at that time. So a lot of my early, instrumental compositions were influenced by him. But as my playing evolved, and I hopefully taking from all my different influences. Another guy, Steve Lukather, that one of my biggest influences from Toto. And then of course Hendrix and Stevie Ray and Eric Johnson and modern days for me, Jeff Beck, who's he could have stopped after the Shapes of Things solos on the Yardbirds record. That's one of the great solos of all time. But he keeps getting better. He keeps just growing and growing and growing. And so I'd like to think the same about my playing and my evolution, especially with the Resolution record. After we did That Was Then, This Is Now for Steve Vai's Favorite Nations label, the band was getting better and maybe more unique at what we were doing. And then when I got into the approach of, the one guitar approach to my recordings, it kind of inspired me to play in a different way. Because I'd gotten to a point with my playing that I was bored. I was bored with the way things were being recorded, rhythm guitars and double, triple tracking solos, and I wasn't inspired at all, to be honest. When we did the tracks for Resolution, that's the way we were going to, in my head, that's the way I was going to be approached, and I quickly realized that I wasn't interested, But it was something that Steve Vai had said to me when we handed in the previous record. There was a few new tracks that we had done. One was called Falling Down, and one was called Super 70s, and there was very little overdubs. In fact, I think Falling Down is just one guitar. And he mentioned to me, he says, I really like the sound when it's just your guitar, just that one guitar, because I can hear your fingers on the frets. Mm. And it was that little nugget of, positive reinforcement that when we'd recorded Resolution, and a year had gone by where I hadn't worked on the guitar tracks. I just couldn't find the will to do it. But then I thought, well, what if I could do, Steve said that thing about the one guitar. What if I could do the whole record like that? Then I got inspired because I thought, okay, now I got to incorporate the chords. I got to support the melody. And I have nothing to fall back on. I've got this great rhythm section, bass and drums, and they fill this wonderful space that, it's an amazing rhythm section. We've played together now for over 22 years. Mm. So they really, they know me well, we know each other well, and that really serves, you can get away with just three guys when there's that awesome layer and everybody, fills the space they need to fill, but not in an overplaying kind of way,
Cry For You is your best known song, the most famous one. Why do you think is that one the most famous from you, and is it still your best?
Well, I'd like to think there's a lot of nice songs in circulation that we do, but that one connects with people, and it's hard to explain really why. I do understand why live for sure, because every night that one tends to have a special emotional quality to it. Even though the girl that it was written for, that you mentioned earlier, that relationship is long since over. The original inspiration for Cry For You when I moved to New York to join Danger Danger, moving away from my girlfriend in Dallas. But now there's plenty of emotion to draw upon whatever's going on in the world. There's so much sadness and things to reflect upon, and that's usually what's going on in my mind, whatever specific situation. And so it's different every night. You know, you put in a different feeling, a different emotion. But I think, and it's also something to do with the fact that there's no words to it. People know, they can hear in the tone and in the composition that it's, you know, something of a sad nature, and people need that. I mean, music kind of gives you a safe place to explore some of those emotions, be it happy or sad, and if this song does it for them, I think that's awesome. Brian Wilson's a guy that does it for me. You know, some of his compositions from the '60s, like God Only Knows and In My Room, and the way he put the melody forth with his beautiful falsetto, I mean, it cuts to your soul in a way that not many artists have ever done. And Jeff Beck's doing it too. His last record, Emotion and Commotion, just rips your heart out. It's just what he does with one note, you know. So he's really my inspiration. Between him and Brian Wilson and Pat Metheny, I mean, these guys they're on another level.
And you do also a lot of guitar clinics. What that mean to you? Why you do that?
Well, it's a fun way for me to get out and meet a lot of players and to play. I treat them really as a mini concerts. You know, if the band's not with me, I've got tracks from the record that I can play along with, and so it's a good way to promote my music and what we do, but also to impart whatever experience and wisdom I've gathered over the years. I love talking about anything related to music or my career or whatever. And I realize now at the ripe old age of 48, I mean, I've had a lot of experience, and good, bad, and ugly, and I'm happy to share it, and because there's a lot of younger players that maybe won't follow a similar path, and I'm happy I can't tell them what will work for them, but I can tell them what I did, and hopefully that will inspire them in some way, and hopefully that will give them some information that might help them decide, is this what I'm going to do with my life? Is this really what I want to do? Or it might just be somebody that, I just want to learn this guy's song and just have fun. Whatever it is, and that's, you're going to get all levels of experience and all levels of people with different goals. But yeah, if you can share some of that and help other players, and all the while realizing that there's probably half the guys here that are amazing musicians already, and you get to jam with some of the folks sometimes, and it's always inspiring to find how great players can be all over the world.
Now it's very different from when you started, because they have computers.
Yes.
And is, what do you think? That is better or worse in a sense to improve talent?
To be honest, I think it's worse. I think it can be a useful tool. But I think that the pitfall is that, everybody wants to be great now. You can't be great now. It takes time. It takes years. It takes a lot of dedication, and there's such a instant gratification factor where you can watch the guy playing your favorite lick or solo right there in front of you, and he's going to show you the lick. Okay, here it is. Or you've got the tablature written out for you. The problem with that is it's two visual experiences instead of an oral experience. Growing up, the fortunate thing for us in our generation was there wasn't that much information available. You had your ears, and you had your record player, and you had your guitar. So I was setting that needle back at the beginning of, Black Diamond over and over and over until I figured out that's an A minor chord. Oh, wow, okay. How cool. And going to F, that's the coolest chord progression ever. Right there, it was such, if I saw A minor to F on a piece of paper, what did I really get out of that? Here I figured it out myself. I didn't know those chords, but that's an open string, I can tell. And it wasn't until years later I realized how fortunate I was, because the most important tool you have as a musician is your ear. It's what tells you, while you're playing with other musicians, okay, what's going on? What are they doing? What do I need to do to fit into that? Or when it comes time to making your own music. The Beatles were amazing songwriters, not because they were born that way. They learned a frickin' bazillion songs. They were playing in Hamburg 8 to 10 hours a night. And so, out of sheer boredom, they didn't want to play the same Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly songs all night. So they learned hundreds of songs, but a lot of show tunes, things with, many more than 3 chords in your basic kind of blues progression. So when it came time to make their own music, well, guess what? They've got all this library in the back of their head. Like, what about this? You know, the little bridge to "For Me to You." If there's anything that you want, if there's anything I can do. It's a simple 1-6-4-5 progression, except when it gets to the bridge, I got arms that long to hold you. G minor to C to F. It's a 2-5 to the 4 chord. Who's doing that in Chuck Berry world? You know, so they had this wealth of things that they picked up by ear. No, they weren't reading out of the Mel Bay songbook. Again, not that there's anything wrong with it. I think you can learn a lot that way, and I have. I've read transcriptions, and I love watching YouTube for entertainment. And, wow, that's how that guy's doing that. That's amazing. I never would have thought of it. But at the end of the day, if the more you get by getting it yourself through your ear, it trains it, and that when I'm writing melodies, that's where it comes from. You're trying to get to the level of all the music that's touched you. You know, I think in songwriting, you're just trying to create the song you want to hear. What have you loved in the past? What will you love now? What can you create to add to that? You know, when I write songs, I mean, I genuinely love them, and they're part of an extension of that music that I've loved, and that combination of all the things that you've taken in through, you know, in your life that has connected with you in some way. You know, you're hopefully rising to something that will be as good as that, you know.
And concerning gear, after 20 years with Ibanez, now you choose Fender.
Well, no, I'm playing.
Now you changed again.
Well, I never was officially endorsing any other guitar but Ibanez, but I did split with Ibanez for a while.
Okay.
Kind of based on my relationship with Mesa Boogie. There's no contract with me and Mesa Boogie.
Okay.
I do use their amps because I love them. And they're very respectful
You
of that.
used Lonnie and Marshall before?
I have a collection of amps, as I have a collection of guitars.
Okay.
As a guitarist, I love all guitars. I love all amps.
Okay.
And you just eventually have to gravitate to what really you find your voice on. The Resolution record was done with a couple of vintage Marshalls, and it sounds great. I've got old Fender and Vox amps that I love. The Mesa Boogie stuff is for a modern amp that's capturing vintage tones in a reliable way. Mm-hmm. They're really doing great work. When they came out with the Lone Star in 2005, that's when I really started using their amps. There's been a friend of mine named Steve Mueller that works with Mesa for years, and he's been a great friend of mine for years. And so whenever they're developing new amps, Steve's like, hey, check out this amp, you know. And sometimes they make stuff that I like, and sometimes it's stuff I don't. I care for it all. But their amps have a niche for whatever type of player. But when the Lone Star came out, I really found a sound that worked for me quite well. And I was endorsing Laney at the time. And they're a great bunch of people, and I love them dearly. They're my friends, and I love their amps. But there was this, and I was working on a signature amp with them. So as an independent musician, that's kind of a major thing. That can mean some income and career, you know, awareness, whatever you might call it, from advertising. But anytime I also at this level of my career and my experience, I know that anytime I've made a decision based on what I think is better for my career or money, it's never the right decision if it's not congruent with what my heart's feeling. And that's where going to decide to play the Mesa Boogie amps was purely based on, I just love this amp. This is what I need to be playing. I'm going to give this other opportunity up, possibly money, possibly whatever. It was a difficult call to make, seeing somebody else. It was a breakup, and we're still great friends, and they still make great amps. But my relationship with Mesa has been awesome because there's no contract, there's no signature model. There's just, you like our amps, great. You don't, play something else, that's fine.
It's a matter of feeling.
It's a matter of feeling. Yeah. And so I had a signature model with Ibanez, but they weren't producing it anymore. And I was just at a point where, I love my old Fenders. I've got Fenders and Gibsons and Gretches.
How many guitars do you have?
More than 3. I don't know.
But something between like 50 and 100?
Between 3 and 100, yeah. It's close to 80 or 90 guitars.
Wow.
I'm a pack rat, prototype guitars over the years. And
all right.
I've gotten rid of a few things, but, I've collected vintage Ibanez, and, if I could afford 50 Strats and Les Pauls, I would, but someday. But I have a nice collection of guitars that are suitable for a lot of different tones for the recording studio. Not just for my music, but for other producers that, I want to hear a Gretsch through a Vox, or I want to, It's nice to have those tools available over many, many, many years of trading and saving and pawn shops. And, I've got a nice little collection.
But if you have to pick your favorite one, the one that we go and...
This is it. And it's interesting because I mean, most guitars are based on either Les Paul's design or Leo Fender's design. Well, this particular Ibanez, it's been my main guitar since 1994. And visually, it's quite like an old classic Strat. It's an alder body and a maple neck. And it's customized in certain ways. The shape of the neck is a little different, but it's different than any other Ibanez. It's very much like a vintage, rounded, shouldered guitar neck that's been played for many years. Though this one's been played now for almost 20 years, so it looks very vintagey. And more modern type pickups, modern hardware, but vintage in every other aspect. So, and I own about 7 different Strats. I kind of figured maybe I'm really just a Strat guy. And I had an '83 Squire Strat that I bought when they came out when I was living in Miami. EMG pickups like Steve Lukather, and a '65 Strat, and different models and vintages. But I can't do what I do. Those guitars for like a couple of songs are great because they inspire me. They have a great tone.
Yeah.
I kept coming back to this guitar. I developed so much of my personality on the instrument through this guitar. That I decided I just need to play that. That's really my guitar. And right at that exact time when I was kind of had that epiphany, regardless of what the headstock says, because people can be very visually, opinionated, and I'm guilty of it. If I see a guy on the cover of Guitar Player magazine, he's holding a Jackson, or he's holding a vintage Strat, I'm going to have 2 very different opinions without hearing a thing, and it's not right, but it's honest, And I think that any guitar fan will know what I'm talking about. And so I was kind of starting to feel like, I wonder if, I'm losing some audience because I don't have the right headstock. But I thought that, what? At the end of the day, if people can't hear what I do for what it is, then maybe they're not the right audience for me anyway. And I also realized that a lot of younger generations that have come up seeing me play this guitar, it's just part of me. So I just decided. And
you use this also with Danger.
I got this guitar in 1994, so Danger was just beyond it. But on those records, there are Ibanez guitars. Yeah, it's mainly. I had this black RG-shaped guitar with 2 purple DiMarzios. Yeah, and they were just.
You love DiMarzio, right?
I love DiMarzio. They make my signature AT1 humbucker and then the 2 humbucker cruisers. They're kind of single coil voiced and sounding, and they're quite nice. Yeah, and so again, a lot of my tone has been kind of based on those cruisers and this AT1, So this is just it. And so right at that time, I had that epiphany. They came to me and said, "Well, we know you're not officially endorsing us, but we're having our 100th anniversary in Japan for Hoshino. Would you come play with Steve Vai and Paul Gilbert and Simon Phillips?" And I said, "Well, of course. I'm honored that you would ask, especially considering that we're not officially seeing each other, so to speak." And while I was there, I kind of assumed maybe they might have something up their sleeve. And we were thinking of reissuing the AT100. I went, this is good timing because after coming full circle, it's like, that's my guitar. I can honestly, go back into putting a signature model out and being happy that, okay, we spent a year on the prototypes to make sure they really got it right. Because if I'm going to have a signature guitar, I really want it to be exactly what I'm playing. We could have made it cheaper. And they asked me many times, well, we could make it, we could change this. And I was like, why bother? If it's not exactly what I'm playing, let's not do it. So I'm very proud of it. The production model, I've played several on this tour from different music stores. And they're sounding better than my old guitar, so they really got it right. So, but this one, it's well worn. It's got my my handprints on it.
So let's go a little bit back in time.
Okay.
You, as you mentioned already, you started your career in the music business with Danger,
yes,
releasing 2 fantastic melodic hard rock albums. Which are the best memories connected to Danger, and why you decided to leave the band? Any regrets concerning them?
All the above. It was such a firstly, for me to get an opportunity to join a band that was already signed to a major label was kind of a definite career goal to actually record something that was on a major label piece of vinyl. That was my life dream, regardless of what the band was. But the fact that when I joined Danger, they had already recorded their first record, and they were remixing it with Mike Stone of Queen and Journey fame. He's done a few records, and so I'll never forget it. that we rented a guitar. They were mixing at a studio called Skip Sailor in somewhere in Hollywood, and we rented a guitar rig from Bob Bradshaw. No, from Andy Brower. I'm sorry, but it was a Bradshaw some kind of rig. And they were mixing the record, but they said, well, let's get Andy on a couple of tracks, because they hired me to come in and be in the band. And this was great. This was my opportunity. I get to play 2 solos on a couple of tracks, redo a couple of tracks that Tony Ray had done.
Which songs were that?
Boys Will Be Boys and Saturday Night.
Okay.
And so I'd worked on what I was going to play, and I came in, and Mike was a little unhappy about the situation, because he'd had some health issues. He'd been through rehab, I think, at that point. And he hadn't been hired to record. He had been hired to mix, and it's a different mentality. And I don't think he wanted to have to deal with, oh God, another take of a guitar solo, great. But I came in and I got both songs in 2 takes, just knocked it out. But I was really oh man, this is Mike Stone, Neil Schon, Brian May. He's worked with the greats, And I go, and I really did get it really quickly, and it sounded great. And I say, what was it, Mike? Was that okay, Mike? He goes, oh yeah, mate, everybody gets it on the first take. And it didn't dawn on me till later, I can just imagine what he'd gone through with some of those Queen records. I'm sure they spent some time, you know what I mean? Getting things just right. I think he was relieved that we just did it and that was done. And so that right there was a dream come true. And then to open for Kiss, which you were in attendance on both tours.
Yes.
1990. I'll never forget the day Bruno called me. He woke me up one morning. And he knew he'd woken me up because it was early in the morning. He goes, get up. I'm like, well, Bruno, I'm up. No. He says, no, get up. I said, what are you talking about? Get up and get your... We're going on tour with Kiss, and we were like little kids jumping up and down. Yeah. And he and I, every night, were standing on the side of the... Every night. We didn't miss a show. We were on the side of the stage freaking out like little kids. We just... Yeah. It was so that experience of, okay, that, as I told you earlier, that was my first concert. 1976, Robert Stadium in Evansville, Indiana, watching Kiss do Destroyer, on the Destroyer tour.
And then you were on stage with
them. And then there we were on tour, because I had that thought. I was in the last seat in the very back of the arena going, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I knew that's and then to be there was a major thing. So in that regard, I mean, the cast of characters within Danger are all just priceless people in my life. Casey and Bruno and Ted and Steve, they're all amazing people and funny fuckers. They're just,
Will there ever be any reunion of the original band?
I never say never. I mean, okay. Musically, I've moved on, and there's some fond memories. But when I joined the band, I was already doing what we're doing in the trio now, so. Yeah. I was coming from a mentality of having wanted to play with Miles Davis, and here I was playing Naughty and Bang Bang. But again, it was just like I didn't start playing guitar to be a rock star. That really wasn't what I thought about. I just wanted to be a great musician. I just wanted to play and be like the guitar players that I was hearing. But the rock star fantasy wasn't really there. So the fact that I was doing it was interesting, but when I see videos and look back, it's like, okay, that doesn't seem like me, in some ways. But I was in a band of New Yorkers. Here's this kid from a small town in Indiana that thought New York would be the last place on earth he'd ever end up. I was kind of afraid of this big city. It turned out to be, the greatest city I've ever lived in. Okay. I love Dallas, and it's great. It's a better place for me to settle down overall. But the people of New York are just truly some of the greatest people in the world. There's a rough, gruff exterior, which I think can be intimidating. Yeah. But once you're inside, and what's great about it is that there's no bullshit. Mm. You know exactly where you stand. There's no phoniness. If you go to the other coast, it's a different story. Yeah. Everything's, hey, and happy, and meanwhile, they're stabbing you in the back, right? So these people are lifelong friends, not just the band, but everybody. That I encountered and made friends with there. They're still some of the dearest friends I have. So, many fond memories, just funny stuff on the road.
And on that tour, the first you did with Kiss, Eric Carr was still in the band.
Eric was in the band, yeah.
On 21st November this year will be 20th anniversary of his passing, which is the best memories that you have connected to him. Because I know that it was him to pick you and Slaughter to say, Gene, hey, you must check these guys out.
Yeah, I think there were several factors. Eric might have had a hand in it. Paul Stanley's best friend in New York City is a guy named Bob Held, who's a friend of ours. He had a hand in it, and there was a lot of factors converging because it wasn't easy to get on a tour like that back then. A lot of times it took a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we toured with Alice Cooper. It was the Epic Records saying, if you want your record promoted, you're going to pay $50,000 to tour with Alice Cooper, or okay, that's what we're doing. So long story short, I mean, Eric was just one of the sweetest guys you could ever meet. Very humble, very sweet. And it was after he'd had some initial health issues. There was a jam I used to do on Thursday nights in New York City called True Blue, which was a club at like 69th and 1st, or 69th and 2nd. And Eric would come out and play. And this night he came out and said, "Hey, I really want to get together with you, and I'm getting my chops back, and I want to do some playing." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to get together. It'd be great." But we never got the chance. Never got a chance to do it. But what a sweetheart of a guy, and just great player. And then the next tour we did, obviously Eric Singer was in the band, and he's amazing as well. He's a great guy.
You collaborated with a lot of different artists, from Olivia Newton-John to Alice Cooper or Kip Winger, and the Beach Boys as well.
Well, that was a very fortunate fan situation.
Okay.
That was the other people I've recorded and spent a lot of time with. The Beach Boys, I just went to a show.
All right.
And that got mentioned as far as me being on stage with them. Mm-hmm. I'd gone to a show and I was at the peak of my Beach Boy mania, and it was a touring group that included two original members. It had Mike Love and Bruce Johnson, who had joined the band kind of mid-'60s when Brian was staying in the studio. And I'd gone to the gig, and luckily the promoter, I didn't know the promoter, but he recognized me. He said, "Oh, Andy, come to the side of the stage." So I went, and I was on the side of the stage enjoying the show. I'm like, wow, this is great. And they sounded awesome. And they come off stage for the encore, and the promoter introduces me to the young guitar player. Mm-hmm. I say young, he's probably my age. I can't remember his name right now, but he was a very nice guy. And the promoter goes, "Hey, this is Andy Timmons. He's a great guitar player." He was like, "You want to play?" I'm like, it's like your childhood fantasy. You're at the gig, you know every song. Come on, man. I hope the guitar player falls over or something. Maybe then I'll get up there and I'll play. Yeah. Well, they said, "Yeah, come out and play." Like, he didn't know me. He didn't have any idea who I was.
What did you play?
Barbara Ann.
Okay.
And just for you.
Okay, thank you.
And they launch into it, and he goes, "It's in F sharp. You okay?" I'm like, "Okay." F sharp.
Great.
And so we do it. He gets to the solo. He was out there with another guitar. And he just points to me, and I play the 12 bars, and he goes, "Keep going." And so this was obviously his big feature of the night, where he gets to wail a little bit. He just didn't know me. Just here's the guitar. And there's Mike Love over there, give me that. I'm like, this is amazing. And so the next day, this is crazy. The next day, the promoter calls me, and again, I didn't really know this guy that way. So he says, "Can I come over?" Like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" "Well, they did a multi-camera shoot last night, and I've got a video of your performance with the Beach Boys."
Wow.
Come on over. So I've got this wonderful, just this fan moment. I'm just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Oh, good.
That was a special memory.
Oh, great. And Steve Lukather, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, they all spend great words about you. And and in a lot of forums on the internet, I checked, a lot of people that are talking about different guitar playing, different styles. And a lot of young people pick you because they say, among, these great names, because they say you have a big emotion, because they have a connection with your style. What do you think about that? And is that a big responsibility for you? How do you live that? And you're also considered one of the 20 best guitar players still alive in the world. So it's like a huge
I think you're about 77. I'm about 77. It's amazing because I don't really know how to address that. I'm very honored by that. It's amazing because I've been just such a fan my whole life. To now be held in the same regard as some of these players that I think are at the top of the heap is a huge compliment. I don't feel so much responsibility. I just feel I need to keep doing what I'm doing and keep on the path that I'm on. And I'm very excited. I just think that I kind of half joke with people saying, when people come to the show and they say, "Oh, Andy, you're number one." I'm like, "No, man, I'm a beginner." And I really feel that way because it's just, you hear, countless other players that are just amazing at what they do, and it's inspiring. Tommy Emmanuel or Jeff Beck or Pat Metheny and of course Eric Johnson and Steve and Vian Lukather. And Joe, I mean, it's just, no matter what level you get to, you realize that there's, infinite possibilities. And I think the level of the expression with the guitar is just beginning. I think that to really tap in to the heart and soul of it, I think there's a long way to go. That Jeff Beck is the leader in that way, what he's achieved. When I heard his last record, Emotion and Commotion, I went, that fucker, he got there before I did. It's what I aspire to do. But he's Jeff Beck. There's just nobody like him. But that's just it. Every musician, if they're really expressing themselves properly, everybody's such a unique player that you can't get bogged down with going, oh, that guy's better or whatever. You gotta be you, and you gotta stay on the path that's in your heart. So. But again, it's just awesome that I've just kind of stuck to what I've been doing for all these years, and again now for this record to come out, it feels like it's kind of come full circle. I'm playing these tunes that I love so much, and hopefully my playing is maturing, and I just want to keep growing. I just want to keep getting better.
So what's in the schedule now? You're doing like a world tour with this Sgt. Pepper record?
Well, if you consider world, Italy and McKinney, it's a world tour. We've had these wonderful 2 weeks here in Italy. We have 3 shows left. We're on our way to Verona right now, and then we do Pisa, and then we do Torino, and then we go home. And the audience is beginning in Catania and all the way north. It's been amazing. It's there's definitely a fan base that we've established and that is there for us. And then I think by playing, music that's so revered as the Beatles, maybe that'll appeal to people that aren't just specifically guitar fans. That maybe they're just fans of the Beatles, and what is this interpretation? Maybe that'll garner us a wider audience. But yeah, we're trying to book some dates right now in the States, which we haven't done much touring in the States. We've gone to Japan several times and all over Europe. So there'll be more touring next year.
Great. And I hope to see you in Liverpool at the Cavern.
That's a goal. We talked about that. I'm very envious of Barbara because she's been and played at the Cavern Club. So that's got to be on our list. That would be a good place to go. I want to do all the tours. But thank you. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much.